for the first time on my desktop, so I hope it doesn't appear too gritty or anything like that. Definitely a different experience. I wanted to join you guys in the countdown for May 1st, tomorrow, with the new immigration changes, and so I thought I would just do a live and go through some of those changes again with you, and try to see if I could answer some questions. I don't want everybody to bombard me and so forth, but I'm going to pull them up. This is really nice, sitting and streaming like this. And once it's finished, I hope I'm able to save it and post it to the page. But let me see if I can log on and find Kim KY. You guys have some interesting names here. Anyway, let me see if I can log on to the government website and find the information that I want to share with you guys. If you have any questions you want to ask, please don't ask me any complicated questions, because you guys can call the pension and labor department. You guys, if I'm in Cayman right now, Taylor.Perryman. Yes, I'm in Cayman right now. I'm always in Cayman. So just don't get too technical and go easy on me tonight. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? This is, oh. Can someone say if you can hear me? Okay, Chevelle said yes. Thank you, Chevelle. So, I hope everyone got there. I hope everyone was able to submit their applications, and that you're all understanding everything that's happening or going to happen. I just want to reiterate, I am not an employee of work or the government at all. I do this on my own accord, free of my own will, and I'm not getting paid. There's not enough of you that follow and like and share my page, so I can't monetize the page. But I did have a legal talk show a few years ago that I'm going to revamp and have lawyers come on that you guys can actually ask all the tough questions, since you're afraid to call or email the Department of Work or Labor and Pension. And there's some other things I want to talk about later on, but I have to be mindful that I don't come across as actually giving you guys legal advice, because that's against the law, right? But I can share with you information that I know. And so let me pull this thing up here with government. Again, just bear with me, because this is my first time doing TikTok live on my desktop, and I have to try and figure it out. This is so interesting. It's much better than doing it on your phone though. And okay, I'm gonna go here. And so Mr. Krishna, all I can say is if your applications were submitted before May 1st tomorrow, your applications will be considered under the previous laws, whether or not. This is my understanding, and this is what I've heard the officials say. If your applications were submitted before, means today would be the last day for submissions of any applications to be considered under the present laws that are in place today, as of today, and were in place previously. Anything that's submitted beginning tomorrow will be considered under the new laws if those laws were changed in regards to those applications. So it would be work permits. There's been changes to work permits, RERC, Caymanian status. Some fees have changed. I still haven't actually sat down and gone through the actual official released document for fee changes. I do know that they are going to be implementing the ID, and so the IDs are supposed to automatically come with your work permits, and if there are any cancellations or denials of any work permits, WORC will automatically process refunds, so it won't have to be an application by the employer. And so this video is not only for work permit holders, because of course we have Caymanians who are employers and submit work permits, Caymanians who are married to you know, non-Caymanians and so forth. So a lot of this, if someone can't see me, let me know, what was it? What if it was the work permit was deferred for weeks now? Well, if the work permit was deferred, again, my understanding and from what I've heard officially is that, again, I will say, if the application was submitted before tomorrow's date, the work permit would be considered under the present laws. Now, there's various reasons they could have been deferred, which wouldn't have anything to do with the laws, but there is discretionary. There's, you know, work defers applications for various reasons, and generally they will tell you in your letters why it was deferred. And it could be deferred from various reasons. What I have seen some deferments were for was just to do background checks on the employers to make sure that the positions are legitimate positions and there was work there for the employee. So, you know, you can call and ask why your work permit was deferred, but if an employer says your work permit was deferred, then that letter should have indicated. I've seen many deferral letters and every one of them say why an application was deferred. So the employer is supposed to give you a copy of the letter if work does not also email you a copy. I've seen where some persons receive, like the employer may receive the letter or the employee may receive the letter. And then I've seen cases where both receive letters. I've seen cases where a Caymanian spouse or, you know, may receive a letter, or the non-Caymanian spouse may receive a letter, or both of them may receive a letter. My understanding is that all parties are supposed to receive a letter if they have an email address and or a mailing address, and generally work will use email addresses these days because it is faster and more convenient and cost effective, meaning it saves the government thousands of dollars if they can email it to you. So if you have not received the letter, whether it was approved, denied, or deferred, then you can call to work and request a copy of that letter. Don't just depend on the employer, or the employer shouldn't just depend on the employee saying, oh, I got a letter and it says X, Y, Z. So I've had a question of why I primarily deal with immigration. Immigration has always been a hot topic for me. I was working with the department many years ago for just short of 4 years, and so I worked in the Department of Caymanian Status and Permanent Residence, and that got me interested in the field of law. And so I am interested in anything about human rights, children, family, women, and anything that benefits my Caymanian people, first and foremost, but also to make sure that everyone is given a fair opportunity. So let me be clear again. First and foremost, my concern is about my Caymanian people, But secondary to that, I want to ensure that everyone that resides, when I say live and reside, it means, we have what we call seasonal people here living, come to the island and reside temporarily. But to make sure that everyone who enters these shores are getting treated fairly, or everyone who lives here, including my Caymanian people. I can't fight the fight for anyone. I'm not a lawyer and I can't legally represent anyone. I just try to share the information that I have been exposed to. And if I don't have it, then I try to find it and share it. And so, hi, Mr. Kenneth, thank you. I'm doing good tonight, thank you. And thank you for the blessings, I certainly need them. I don't know how to heart these things, but thank you, Mr. Kenneth. It's really nice to see. So that's where my interest in immigration lies. And then I like I said, I became interested in law at that time. And then I went on to work at the court office for another 4 years. And so definitely my interest in the area of law was spiked there. I've seen the difference that the law can make in people's lives. It can break your life, or it can definitely make and improve your life. And so that is where my interest derived from. Cayman is at a pivotal point in its history where we haven't had such immigration changes for quite a long time. We want to applaud the government, the present sitting administration, for taking the initiative and standing strong. The present minister, Honorable Minister Michael Miles, and the government behind him, and also the opposition, because the opposition wants immigration change. They wanted immigration change, but the opposition's job is to be the opposition. So many of you may not like it, but it's not going to be as challenging as many of you think. And change is always good once you get used to it. You just have to figure out that you're doing the right thing. The laws are not only created for Caymanians or employers. The laws are always created for non-Caymanians and employees. And our human rights states that in other words. And if you're not getting paid properly, if you're being overpaid or underpaid, or your pension isn't being paid, or your insurance isn't being paid, or whatever the case may be, these places are there for you to complain. Do not let yourself be caught up in a situation. My Caymanians, do not get married to people who you have not dated for at least a year. 6 months is a long time to get to know someone, so do not get married to someone that you've not dated for at least a year. And educate yourself, get to know people, get to know their families, spend time around them. Do not have children right away and allow that to be a disposable situation for you. And spend thousands of dollars getting yourself into a situation where you have to spend extra thousands of dollars trying to get out of. Many of you may be caught up in domestic situations and that sort of thing. So there is a lot to think about once the law comes into place tomorrow. Yes, we are not the only country that's making changes. The U.S. has made immigration changes. We see the UK has made drastic immigration changes. Canada, many countries around the world are making immigration changes, including many Caribbean countries. So when I get online and I see a lot of you, locally here and overseas, and criticizing the Cayman Islands government for wanting to protect its borders and its people, right? You need to second guess this and spend more time reading the news, worldwide news and that sort of thing, and seeing where other countries are doing very similar things. And remember, now we're one of the smaller nations in the world, so we have a definite right to try to put these implementations in place. So do the right thing. Many of you will say, oh, everyone's going to leave and we're not going to have anyone. I can assure you, that if as many people leave this country, there's as many people trying to get here. If I tell you the amount of messages I get of how people can get a work permit here. So Cayman is never going to be at loss for getting people. Never, never, never. So let me get into this. I've already been here on 15 minutes, just, doing some housekeeping. And so here we go. Oh, this is so exciting. Parliament has been in session. I always encourage anyone that lives in the Cayman Islands to always try to tune into Parliament. Lots of you don't want to because it's not your native country, but you see what happens now. You don't fully understand a lot of the immigration laws because you didn't listen to Parliament. Rather than scrolling on TikTok, many of you non-Caymanians love to scroll TikTok. Many Caymanians love to scroll TikTok too, and the Ministry of Social Development and Innovation, which is Department of, what is this? Children and Family Services, will be on to Mr. Connor's show tomorrow, Radio Cayman, all right, Connor, to launch Child Month. So many of you may want to tune in and listen to that. Yes, Radio Cayman is online, live streaming. It is also on YouTube. So let me find this here now, what I'm looking for, so I can start telling you some things that you want to hear. Okay, here it is. Cayman Immigration Law. Remember, guys, like, follow, and share. Okay? I have no clue how this works, but okay, let me go here. I tell you, Parliament has been hot yesterday. It's actually still going on. Yeah, it'll probably go on until about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they're back there again tomorrow. So let me see here. Can you imagine? It's May already. It seems just like yesterday. Okay. Let me go here first and see what this says. Good night, One King. Good night, Dominicano. Number 1, Mas Hondureño. Yeah, I do know a little Spanish. Good night, ma'am, says Lal. I know you guys like to get called out with your comments, so I will do that. Hi to all of you who sends a hi. Good night, Lady Pet. Hi, Lady Pet. Thanks for joining. Chevelle said yes. Troy said yes. Lady Pet. Yes, hearing very well. Thank you. I was wondering your opinions on expats on island work, and I love your videos. Thank you, Taylor. Perryman. I don't have an opinion on expats on island working as long as they behave themselves and do the right thing, and don't allow themselves to be taken advantage of, and don't take advantage of my Caymanian people. I have no other opinions about expats, and actually I don't like that word expat. I prefer the word immigrant. Expat sounds too derogatory for me. So but I understand your question. Okay, all right, I was wondering. Okay, I just answered that. Encouraging more viewers to share. Encourage more viewers to share. Yes, I've done so. Let me see. What if it was the work permit was different? Okay, I just answered that. It was no reason. I understand. No, Lady Pet. They have to give you a reason, and if the letter hasn't stated a reason that you may understand, then you have to call. By law, they're supposed to give you a reason why it was deferred. It may be because they're backlogged. It may be because they're checking some things behind the scene, because they I understand, have the right to do that. But I think they're somewhat backlogged. Okay, thanks so much. You're welcome. Hi. Let me see here. My mouse seems to have, ooh. Okay, everything seems to have frozen. Did my battery just die? about the rollover. Does it change to 2 years? I'm going to talk about that. Good night. Anything changes regards permanent residents? My understanding is the point system in regards to permanent resident hasn't changed per se, but government is going to be looking at that eventually. I can't tell you how long a work permit takes to come through. I can tell you that if you do express, I think the express fees are changing, if I can remember correctly. I can't tell you how long a work permit takes because there's different factors with that when you submit your work permit. Now, if you do apply for express, well, it should be considered under the express. Good night, ma'am. Under the express plan that you paid for it. So I exited Cayman last January 2026 is the new law will apply if I come back. Absolutely, sir, because the new Rochelle or ma'am, the new law definitely will apply because it starts tomorrow. So that for certain is a yes. Always depending on you for info. Thank you. Why is it taking 10 months to make a decision on a grant work permit? Well, that sounds like it's been deferred. I don't know. It could depend on a lot of things. You can call them and ask them that, and they can more than likely give you an explanation. It could be a lot of things. Are you sure that it's submitted even? Or are you taking your employer's word and say, hey, I submitted it? Because that's happened a lot to a lot of employers have told employees that they submitted applications and then the applications were in fact not submitted. Okay, I just answered that. So I always encourage you guys to call or email. Cayman has become overly populated and developed and spiritually, physically, psychologically underdeveloped. Ooh. Alakapam, I don't know what to say about that. I do know we're somewhat becoming overpopulated, that's for sure. Some of these questions are becoming. I think my mouse's battery is dying. The US notes we are getting at the ATM, we have problems sending them using JN or MoneyGram. Oh. Maybe because they're the US notes. Why are you sending US notes by JN? I don't know what to say about that. Maybe you have to, whatever ATM you're getting them from, you maybe need to exchange them at the bank. That's interesting. Maybe I'll write the government about that. That is an interesting one, real life. Please look into it. Why is it okay? Permit price for bottle servers. Maybe you answered this already. However, is the minimum of $5,000 for a dependent, a combined salary. You guys have to give me a minute, please, because my battery on this mouse is dying. Sorry about that. Oh, looks like Parliament was over for the night. And so, yes, guys, my battery died. Excuse me a minute. So I am going to say this once again as a disclaimer. That is a word that we have to use to say that we are giving you information, but we are letting you know in advance that this information is only given on a basis where, why is this? Okay, I think I signed into the wrong thing here. All right. I saw a document the other day that I wanted to share with everyone. Okay, so all right, that is not what I wanted to see. All right, that is news. Here we go. What happens if an employer doesn't pay their part of the health insurance? I don't know. You need to complain to the health insurance, to the Health Insurance Commission. There's a Health Insurance Commission that is located at the Government Administration Building, GAB, and if your employer doesn't contribute to your health insurance, then you can file a complaint, because that means it sounds like your health insurance is not in order. I can't say ex predisa how long a work permit takes to be approved. You'll have to call work for that. It made no sense of them increasing the minimum wage, it only causing the raising of inflation. That's usually, Gordon Jackson, that is generally what happens, but you know, minimum wage hasn't been increased in years. What I've seen happen in the US, for example, is when minimum wage has been increased, it's done in a small increment. So if you're going from $6, you're going to maybe $6.75 or $7.25, not such a huge jump. Now, I can't say why the government decided to go for a huge jump. Only them would know that, but I have never seen it increased at such a large margin. Let me see here now. Okay. All right. Okay, this is what I wanted to read to you guys. And the fees are here. So let me read this guidebook. I'm probably going to be here for quite a while because I've already been here 28 minutes. The guidebook, all right, it kind of breaks down most of everything. And I like to read from this because you know why? Many of you like to go back and say, oh, Legal Talk on TikTok said this, and then you don't relay exactly what I said. And so I do not want to get myself in trouble for giving the wrong information, so I would rather just read from the government's release information. And so this beautiful Caymanian Protection Act 2022 Revision Immigration Reform Guidebook, if any of you want it, you can send me your email address. I can download a copy and send it to you by email. It is beautiful, nice and pretty, purple, and I guess this is yellow. And so it talks about the acts and regulations. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's 27 pages. I'll just touch on the areas that relates to people. And so the overview is saying stronger pathways to Caymanian status, longer residency requirements and new ongoing obligations reinforce the commitment needed to obtain the right to be Caymanian. Enhanced scrutiny of relationships and dependence measures address arrangements of convenience and require clearer evidence of genuine relationships and family contributions. Because, you know, I just want to touch on that for a minute. No, I'd better leave it till I go down. Expanded compliance and enforcement mechanisms, increased information sharing across government agencies and stricter penalties for false declarations, improve oversight. Anyway, just let's stick to stricter penalties for false declarations. That means stricter penalties for making false, for giving false information through immigration and saying that it is the correct information, right? Changes to residency and employment rights certificates, RERCs, permanent residency and work permits create more structured and transparent process. A modernized work permit system, new advertising requirements, restrictions and early job changes, and clearer employer obligations aim to better protect the local workforce. Now, I know many of you are, I can put my wife under my work permit with the new law. Certainly you can. Gringo underscore HN. And there's been changes regarding that too. I did a video last week about the job hopping, the new job hopping information. Many of you have asked, well, since I'm here on Ireland, does that job hopping apply to me since I'm already here on Ireland and working? My understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but the way that it has been relayed, okay, Miss Lady Pet, okay, no problem, is that if you're here on Ireland and you submit anything under the new law would generally apply to you. I could be wrong on that, but that was the information I received, and sometimes the information, even from the departments, are not always accurate, because that has happened to me before. So my thing would be to tell you again is to call the department if you're not sure. Okay? So this is such you guys that you guys would really need to have this. It gives a lot of information. It's very plainly written, plain language. I know some of you still wouldn't understand a lot of it because it is a lot of reading. Okay, so the transitional matters. The Act includes transitional rules to explain how certain existing applications and existing holders are treated when the legal changes take effect. So, who is protected? Let me see what I should read here for you. Okay. People who had already submitted an application before May 1st, that means today is the last day, or who was already the subject of an application in one of the listed categories and the application is later granted. Okay, who is protected? Basically, it's saying anyone who has already submitted an application before. Okay, I need to read that part, but this is important, but many of you are not going to understand that. Okay, so right to be Caymanian. The law makes significant changes to the pathway to the right to be Caymanian in several categories. The qualifying period, that means the time to qualify to become a Caymanian, is extended. So they've increased that amount of time, and new ongoing obligations are introduced. So they've put extra obligations on there. So for a person naturalized under the British Nationality Act, the overall period that you're supposed to be living in the islands increases from 15 years to 20 years. The period after receiving the certificate of naturalization or registration, so once you've become naturalized and received your certificate, or your registration increases from 5 to 10 years. For a person who is a British Overseas Territory citizen through another overseas territory, so that means if you're a British Overseas Territory citizen from another British territory, like the Cayman Islands is, the residence period increases from 15 years to 20 years. Does the book address my question about the minimum salary? Miss Alicia, I haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm sure that it does. For a person married to or in a civil partnership with a Caymanian, the waiting period before applying for the right to be a Caymanian or for Caymanian status increases from 7 to 15 years. Now, I was one of those who advocated strongly for these changes because I saw one too many times we have these marriages of convenience where an immigrant will marry a Caymanian and they marry very quickly, sometimes 1 month, sometimes 3 months, they have children, and particularly the Caymanian mother is left to maintain this child on their own. The father or parent is loose somewhere else and does not want to maintain that child. I was an advocate for the change for maintenance and affiliation law many, many years ago, and I am very passionate. I feel very strong about people getting married just for the fact to be married, and also people having children and do not oblige for their responsibilities. We know, unfortunately, that is very common, especially for men, and it's very common here in the Cayman Islands. And then the parents become, the mother usually become destitute and have to depend on other services to maintain their child. I would like to see a system in the Cayman Islands. Did you know that kids born here have a hard time to be accepted in school in Jamaica? I don't know that. I would have assumed that once they go to Jamaica, they have to be recognized as a Jamaican in order to be in school. Because children born in other places in the U.S. that come here, in other places in the world, have to come here and apply to be recognized as a Caymanian. And if they are, then they're allowed to be accepted into the public school system. Otherwise, they generally have to go to private school. So I don't think it may be any different in Jamaica. You just have to find out the information. Miss Nikki Bless Mitchell. It may be a hard time and looking at it from that standpoint, but it's probably just as I said, they just need to be recognized as a Jamaican and not be considered a person born in the Cayman Islands, meaning a Caymanian. So okay, so that is clear. If you get married to a Caymanian beginning tomorrow, right? Or you're in a civil partnership, meaning civil partnership usually refers to two people who are in a same-sex relationship. The waiting period before applying for Caymanian status increases from 7 years to 15 years. I think that is fair, because you can get your RERC and you can work and maintain your family and do what you're supposed to do without thinking, I want to get Caymanian status, right? So I think that is reasonably fair. Persons granted the right to be Caymanian on the basis of marriage or in a civil partnership must file an annual declaration for the first 7 years after the grant of right to be Caymanian. So an annual declaration means you're filing and attesting. Well, not all children that are born in the Cayman Islands obtain a passport, Miss Nikki. But that doesn't mean that because they have a Caymanian passport, they cannot be recognized as a Jamaican either, because if, depending on the parent, which parent is Jamaican, or if no parent is Jamaican, I assume one parent would be Jamaican. So, here in the Cayman Islands, if a child is born here, it depends on the year that the child was born, and it depends on if the child was, the parents were married, if one of the parents was not a Caymanian, and it depends if that parent was a mother as a Caymanian. And so there are a lot of factors to consider when you consider children born in countries and whether or not they're a citizen of that country. That child could very well be considered a dual citizen, where they could qualify for both citizenships of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Okay, a person may lose that right of being a Caymanian if after reaching 18 years of age, they reside outside the Cayman Islands for 5 years and fail to notify the Director of Work. So if you're 18, after you reach 18 and you're living out and you have your Caymanian, you are granted the right to be Caymanian, and that's not an actual Caymanian, right? And you reside outside the islands for 5 years and you haven't notified the Director of Work and advised them why you're living outside the country for 5 years, well, the right to be Caymanian, where the right to be Caymanian was granted through marriage or civil partnership, failure to file the required annual declaration may result in revocation. So if you're living outside the country, there's two different things going on here, it appears to me. The way that they have this written is, okay. Formal confirmation based on proven connectivity. Okay. Caymanian as of right means someone who automatically qualifies as Caymanian if they fit any of these situations. So if you fit one of these situations, you were born in the Cayman Islands on or before March 26, 1977, you could be considered a person who automatically qualifies as a Caymanian. If you were born on or after January 1st, 2004, either in the Cayman Islands or abroad, and at least one parent was both settled in the Cayman Islands and Caymanian when they were born. I just spoke about that. If they were born outside the Cayman Islands after January 1st, 2004, and at least one parent was Caymanian by birth and or direct right, just not through Caymanian family descent, they became a Caymanian under Section 21 of the Old Caymanian Act 2015 revision, or under an earlier law that gave the same or similar rights. Quick comparison before applying for right to be Caymanian. A naturalized person, right? Total lawful and ordinary resident. The old law says you would have had to be here in Ireland for 15 years before applying for the right to be Caymanian. The new law will say 20 years. If you're a naturalized person, period after naturalization or registration, the old law said 5 years, the new law says 10 years. British overseas territory citizen connected to another overseas territory, meaning another country that's considered a British territory. The present law says 15 years, the new law will say 20 years. Married to civil partnership, married to or a civil partner of a Caymanian, again, the present law as of today says 7 years. The new law as of tomorrow will say 15 years. Hi Flames TV. We've missed you online talking about Cayman. I see you're talking a lot about Jamaicans too, but I still miss your contents, or miss people sending me your contents about Cayman. But it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining. How are you? Blessings. Thank you. Blessings to you too. Let me go down here. Residency and employment right certificate. So like I said, anyone that wants a copy of this, they can have it. And I think this is very inclusive of everything. It sums a lot of everything up. It's 27 pages, and it's always good to, the government couldn't afford to print this off for everyone to get a copy, but I can tell you it's not that. It's probably like about $27. I don't know how much it is to print it off. Say for instance, if you go to the library and you get it in black and white, I don't know how much they charge at the library. I think it's 25 cents. I'm just going to tell you this just in case, because many of you may want to go to the library and print it just to keep it for you. So 0.25 times 27, yeah, less than $10 to get this printed at the library if you need to. I don't know if they have any copies at the library. I think every MP's office should have a few copies, and there should be some copies at the library, just the same as they've placed copies of the human rights. Okay, here we go. Longer path before naturalization. Some RERC holders must now wait longer before applying for naturalization. We just went through that. So persons holding an RERC as a spouse, husband or wife, or civil partner, same-sex partners, usually that's what civil partner means, of a permanent residence, or persons holding an RERC as a spouse or civil partner of a Caymanian. Okay? So there's longer pathways to naturalization if you hold one of those. If you hold an RERC under permanent, for someone that is a permanent resident. Okay, in both cases, the previous position allowed the person to apply for naturalization after 1 year. That's no longer the case as of tomorrow. The updated act increases that period. Woo, guys, it went from 1 year to 15 years. That is a lot. Because what we found, I don't know, Willa Walla, how long it takes for a work permit to come out. I'm sorry to say. It's a great question for you to call work and ask. Now, I've been advocating for the government to try to get their departments to have WhatsApp numbers, because many of you middle class and working class immigrants and even Caymanians do not have data or credit. You usually just put on enough data on your phone to have WhatsApp and to surf these social media pages. So I know in some areas in the States, WhatsApp numbers are available. In the States, they use a lot of text messaging. Government organizations and private businesses in order for communication, and you have to accept that you want to be able to communicate by text. Text is not big here in the Cayman Islands because, of course, we have other types of expensive telecommunication plans. The plans here in the Cayman Islands are not as reasonable and affordable as they are in the US. And so texting here is not as big as it is in the US. It used to be big one time before WhatsApp came on. So and the government, I believe, is trying to get 800 numbers. So those of you who are on the island and do not have any credit or do not have any data can call the 800 numbers to the government. Okay. The Act also allows the Director of Work or the board to consider whether there are reasonable grounds to suspect that a marriage or civil partnership is one of convenience. Authorities may consider whether the relationship is genuine for immigration purposes. Hi, Seema. Oh, this one is very, very interesting. Continuation after the death of a Caymanian spouse. The new structure distinguishes between marriages of different lengths. So if the marriage existed for less than 7 years before the death of the Caymanian spouse, the surviving spouse loses the RERC. If the marriage existed for at least 7 years but less than 15 years, continuation may depend on the discretion of the board or the Director of Work. So if you marry a Caymanian or you have a civil partnership with a Caymanian and that Caymanian dies or that civil partner dies and your marriage was in place for less than 7 years, you lose your RERC. If your marriage was in place for 7 years or more but less than 15 years, work can consider whether or not they can allow you to keep that RERC. Unfortunately, I have seen one too many Caymanians, for some reason or another, get sick and then pass away not too long after being married. And so Miss Seema, I did a video on that last week. I don't remember what I was wearing. I like to refer people to whatever I had on. It's easy to find the videos, but it is in the top of my page somewhere there. So I can't tell you if you can change your job or not. I can tell you you can apply to work to see if you can change your job, but you can't apply for one job while you're still in another job. I can tell you that. So, and you can apply to change your company in under 2 years, but it has to be real serious circumstances. I'm just going to use that word for you. The circumstances on that job has to be real serious circumstances. For instance, you have to be going through some extreme hardships on that job, or you're really not being paid on the job for, work is the one that makes that determination. That's why I always like to say to people, but did you document it? Because you have a right to keep track of whatever happens to you on the job. Now, that's not to say some of you go on the jobs and start making a problem out of nothing, because I've heard about that too, just so you can be fired or complain to work or whatever the case may be. The surviving spouse, again, we're back to continuation after the death of a Caymanian spouse. The surviving spouse must apply within 6 months. So if your spouse dies, and you feel that the marriage was at least 7 years or more, but under 15 years, the surviving spouse must apply within 6 months after the death of the Caymanian spouse for the right to continue to hold the certificate. Where revocation occurs, the surviving spouse must apply within 3 months of revocation to maintain the facility. Okay? So, after the spouse have died, you have 6 months to apply for the right to continue to hold the RERC. If the certificate is revoked, that means withdrawn by work, the surviving spouse may apply within 3 months of the revocation. Again, it's like a appeal, that if you lose it, you can reapply within that 3 months to try to maintain the certificate. Okay, continuation of RERC after divorce, dissolution, or annulment. The revised act or law gives the board or the director of work discretion, so he can use his discretion, director of work, and that means he can just think for himself and evaluate the application and use the law to review the application against and decide whether to revoke the RERC where the marriage or civil partnership ends in divorce or ends in it being annulled. And annulled, for some of you who may not know what annulled means you get them go to court and get the marriage cut as though it never existed. So you go to the court and say, hey, I don't want this marriage to be recognized as a real marriage, and you have to give good reasons, and so the courts will decide whether or not to have that marriage annulled. And so work can use the discretion to revoke the RERC where the marriage or civil partnership has been dissolved or annulled and has lasted for at least 7 years but less than 15 years at the time of the dissolution or annulment. This makes clear that revocation is not automatic. So just because you have a divorce or your marriage is annulled or your spouse passes away does not mean you automatically entirely uses your RERC. Okay, you have to apply, and there's a certain amount of years that is based on the applications. Okay, a detailed set of changes applies where a person seeks continuation of an RERC. So application based on Caymanian children. So some of you are the parents of Caymanian children, and you can apply to remain on island. Many years ago this was not the case. So a detailed set of changes applies where a person seeks continuation of an RERC on the basis that they have Caymanian children. The law now requires more than just proof that the child exists. Guys, you can't just go and submit an application. Smiley, you said it rough. It's not only rough in the Cayman Islands. Sorry to tell you. It's rough everywhere, sir. It's rough everywhere. But yes, you can't just go and say, I'm a parent, I have a Caymanian child, and that child is proven to be a Caymanian child, and I want to apply for RERC. It doesn't work like that. The applicant may need to show that they have financially supported the child. Very important. Continue to contribute positively to the child's life. Now, this is what I'm going to say to some of you parents who are non-Caymanians. Go to the court system, the civil registry on the 4th or 5th floor of Kirk House, across from the courthouse, and ask to bring your case to family court to set up an arrangement for you to maintain your child and have it documented through the court in order to comply with these requirements here if you want to apply for RERC. Okay? And you have to continue to positively contribute to your child's life. And you know what that means, guys? That means visiting your child, spending time with your child, doing things with your child. Not just saying, oh, me maintain my child, or I'm sorry to use a Jamaican accent, but it's commonly known that this happens with a certain nationality. And I'm not being disrespectful, guys, so don't come at me because I won't do another video for you. If they cannot provide sufficient proof, the Director of Work or the Board may request a social inquiry report from the Department of Children and Family Services or the Department of Community Rehabilitation. So I'm going to make it easier for you and just tell you, do what you need to do for your child, and just make, it's not that hard. I see many of you out partying, online, sporting off your lifestyles and stuff, and I've had people messaging me and saying they're going through this and they're going through that with their kids, and they're going this way looking for assistance and doing this and doing that. Many of you parents should be ashamed of yourselves that you've brought a child into this world under whatever circumstances, and you're not trying to do the right thing. Ma'am, my grant permit isn't granted at this time. I can go vacation or not. Ma'am, I can't tell you that. You have to go to CBC and let them review your file and decide if they can give you a re-entry stamp. I can't tell you that. They are the only ones who can say, depending on what they see on your file with work, whether they can give you a re-entry stamp, and then you can go on your vacation. The earlier you do that, the better. With the new no job hopping, what happens if they let you go as an expat? Do you still have to leave? I can't tell you that either, Miss Aries _baby_Tara. If your job lets you go, first thing you have to do is to go to CBC, and they will see what's on file for you and decide whether you have to leave the island or not. There is a period of time. I see what's happening here. There is a period of time that they're supposed to. Live will end in 4 minutes. I need to. So nothing was happening. Can you guys see me? Okay, there we go. There is a period of time they're allowed to give you. Once your work permit ends, whether you cancel it or the employer cancels it, and you can tell them whether you're going to put in another application or not. I was going back to this document. Let me see where it was. Here we are. Okay. So we talked about providing the proof that you are doing what is right by your child. The law also clarifies that the Caymanian child must be the child of both parties to the marriage or civil partnership being relied upon. So that Caymanian child must legitimately belong to the husband and the wife of the marriage, and that can take a DNA test to prove that. A person with RERC through a Caymanian relationship cannot extend that status to a new non-Caymanian spouse or civil partnership after the original relationship ends. So what that is saying is, if you married a Caymanian and you got an RERC and that marriage or civil partnership ends, you cannot give your new non-Caymanian spouse or civil partnership applicant to allow them to apply for RERC. It cannot be passed on. Okay? So let's just get that clear, because some of you get married to Caymanians and you obtain RERC and then you divorce them and you marry someone from your own country, and then you want to pass that RERC or that Caymanian status or permanent residence on to that new spouse. Good night. What about marrying as immigrants? Do you both often leave when your spouse term limit ends? My understanding is it used to be whoever had the longer term limit. So if your wife had a longer term limit than you, and you had to go over on rollover earlier than her, then you could piggyback off of her work permit and stay as long as she's staying. Well, it's the opposite now. Whoever has a shorter term, that's when the term expires. So if both parents are married, should the kids do DNA still? Florence Shirley, 345 KY. Well, there has to, the birth certificates and so forth would prove. I think you're referring to this question here. I can't really say that for sure, Miss Florence. That's a question for work when you're ready to put in your application, because that question could be broad. You could have a lot of things going on there. If I only work with one somebody from my Cayman, it's easy to get an next permit with a different company. I don't know that, Miss K. I really can't tell you that. I am only trying to tell you what the laws are that have changed. So if you only work with one person, one employer, to get an next work permit with a different company, you know, that's up to work to determine that, and they determine that by how the application is submitted. And I can't answer that, because I don't want you to go to say she told me or she said yes I could get another work permit. I would say if you're no longer working with that company, then you have to apply for another work permit and just hope for the best. That's what I would say. Well, if two Jamaicans have a child, you have to explore the laws. I don't understand. What if two Jamaicans have a child here in the Cayman Islands? Okay. Very unlikely. I don't know, Miss US / Shella. Depending on the year that child was born in the Cayman Islands, and they have to double check with work to see if that child would be considered a Caymanian child, but it doesn't sound like it would for me. But don't quote me on that, okay? Consult work. I have a list of immigration lawyers on my page that I know about. Most of them will talk to you for a few minutes and just give you a broad little 1-2 minute talk and tell you yes or no, and you can go and have a consultation. You know, some of you, I'm sorry to say this, but many of you send a lot of your money back to help your families, and I always encourage people, Caymanians as well as immigrants, to consult a legal professional that's an agent of immigration or a lawyer to get some legal advice on your situation. You can consult work, you can consult CBC also, but the best place to go is a source of professional persons. I am going to try to get an immigration person on. I had one before when I was doing my talk show, and have you guys shoot all the questions that you want at this person, because I am not a qualified lawyer in the Cayman Islands. I don't want to tell you certain answers, even though I may know, and then you go and say, oh, she told me that, and that's not a nice thing for me to, a nice position for me to be in. Hi, ma'am, I have one question. I haven't completed my 2-year with my employer. May I change my job now? Ma'am, I don't. Oh, that's Mr. Zeaton. I can't tell you when it's time for you to change your job, sir. I can't tell you that. It's a decision whether that you want to make, whether you want to resign from the job or you get terminated, and then you decide if you want to change your job. I can't say whether it's time for you to change your job. If both parents are work permit and child born here, the child is not eligible. Most likely, if both parents are on work permit, yes, the child. But Miss Florence, do not take my word for that. Call work and ask them that question personally, because I don't want you guys to go and say, she said this, if I'm not. Whoa, now this is what I wanted you guys to know. This is a list. I've been on here an hour. I'm probably going to go just 2 hours. That's the average for a live talk show, a live video. Compliance, monitoring, and information sharing. Now, guys, listen to this very good, because this is very important, right? The new section of the law allows for information sharing between work and a wide range of public bodies. That means different government agencies. No, ma'am, I know the law. Well, if you knew the law, Miss Florence, why were you asking me the question above? because you're asking me the question and then you're telling me the answer, so it doesn't make sense to ask me the question. I mean, according to new rules, may I be able to switch my job or not? I can't tell you that, Mr. Zeaton, honestly. You can try to switch your job. You have to give a good reason why you want to switch your job. I'm not sure how it works exactly if you are already here and on a work permit. My new employer didn't pay me lots of money. He's out of contract. What should I do, ma'am? Depeche, maybe you can inbox me. I don't know. Didn't pay me lots of money. Well, if he didn't pay you, what are you doing for work now? If he's out of contract, what are you doing for work? And if he didn't pay you, you can complain to the Department of Labor. That's the best thing to do. Protect yourself. And this also helps you if you apply for another work permit. If you do the right thing and go to the Labor Department, the Pension Department, and make a complaint, it also helps you if, in fact, for future purposes. I have on a yellow dress where it talks about protecting yourself. What can I do about a summons over a car I no longer have? The only thing for you to do, Miss Carola, is either go and show up for the summons and or get a lawyer. If you're summoned to court, you generally should go, because otherwise a warrant could be put out for your arrest. For failing to show up. But I don't know if it's a civil warrant or a criminal warrant. Ooh. Oh, okay, Miss Florence. My apologies then. Okay. Okay, let me get down here. So listen to this now, guys. Work will be working with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the Department of Labor and Pensions, Customs and Border Control, CBC, the General Registry, which is where all the birth certificates, divorce certificates, and those documents, death certificates and so forth are located with the General Registry. So you went to court and paid $60 for an answer. Okay, so where are you asking me what to do about it? I'm confused. Okay, the Director of Public Prosecutions, that department is the people that decides whether criminal charges should be filed against people. Okay, so again, work will be working with these government agencies when considering people's work permit applications, and that could be why some of you have deferred applications too, because work could be making background checks to see if there's anything there. The Director of Public Prosecutions, the Department of Children and Family Services, the Department of Community Rehabilitation, the Department of Financial Assistance, used to be NAU, now it is DFA, the Health Insurance Commission to see whether or not health insurance is in place and whether it's paid up, the Portfolio of Civil Service to see if you're a civil servant and if you're not, if you're doing the right thing as a civil servant, the Department of Commerce and Investment to see whether or not you have a business or a legitimate business, and if you have a business that will be employing a certain amount of people and you're trying to employ more, all those sorts of things. The department responsible for scholarship administration, because anyway, I won't get into that. What should I do after that? Oh. Carola, I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you that. I don't know what your case was about. You just told me you went to court and paid $60 for an answer, and the court would have told you what to do after that. You should read your papers properly. If it was civil court, you can go to the civil registry and have them explain the results that was in court. If it was a criminal court, you can go to the criminal registry and ask them to advise you what to do next. Okay? The department responsible for scholarship administration, the unit responsible for national training and development. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 departments. I understand that it's 16, but I only see 13 here. This is intended to help decision makers assess matters such as character, criminal proceedings, family considerations, and workforce planning. And I want to say this to you guys, Caymanians and non-Caymanians alike. Make sure your social media is clean. President Trump is very clear that anyone that applies for anything with the United States now has to put their social media handles. And if you've had them blocked, you have to unblock them. Otherwise, your applications won't be complete. Will not be reviewed, especially for U.S. visas and those sorts of things. So, I would say the Cayman Islands government is going to be doing the same thing. So keep your social medias clean, all of you who like to criticize the Caymanian government and the Caymanian people and the life that's here in the Cayman Islands and that sort of thing, but you still want to work and live here. Be careful, okay? And be careful what you post on your social medias also in terms of what you've done in regards to your immigration situation, whether you're Caymanian or non-Caymanian. Okay? The annual declarations across more categories. Okay. Introduces or expand annual declaration requirement for several groups, including persons granted the right to be Caymanian through marriage or civil partnership, holders of RERC, holders of certificate of direct investment, holders of a residence certificate for substantial business presence. Okay, this is the part I want to get to for you guys too. A new section 75A makes it an offense to provide false information concerning financial standing must be demonstrated. Okay, a person may be liable on summary convictions. So that means if you go to summary court and you're convicted and found that you have provided false information and you're found guilty, you could be fined a fine of up to $10,000, in prison for a year, or both. So if you give false information, it may become a ground for revocation of the relevant certificate or work permit. If you give false information and it is found that you've given false information, your certificate of RERC or permanent residence or your work permit could be revoked, and you have a fine of up to $10,000, imprisonment, or both. Okay? So that's very important for many of you to know. Ms. Florence Shirley, I don't know if you work with immigration, but I wouldn't give people immigration advice on here unless you work with immigration, ma'am, because the laws are going to be very tricky once this changes. Let me get down here to permanent residence. I'm an hour and 13 minutes. So, permanent residency, person of independent means, an applicant must now prove at the time of applying that they have already invested and developed real estate in the Cayman Islands and the amount fully paid meets the minimum investment by law. So if you want to apply for permanent residence under independent means, and meaning that you invested in real estate, you must have already done so before your application, and that you can show that you met the minimum invested amount required by law. Let me see here. So at the time of the application, the investment requirement, the paid up value of that investment must meet the minimum amount required by law. The initial period, if approved, the applicant must hold that status for 10 years. Okay, let me go here and see. Okay, permanent residency revocation. A person may now lose their permanent residency if the board or the director of work believes that they are not financially supporting or otherwise contributing positively to the life of the Caymanian child that they relied upon in their application to show close Caymanian connections. The Act also now allows PR to be revoked where a person is suspected of being in a marriage or a civil partnership of convenience. These changes are intended to protect the integrity of the system and ensure that PR is not maintained on the basis of on basis of relationships that are not genuine, or that they are not fully supporting their family connections. I hope you guys understood that. Okay. Okay. Specialist caregiver certificates, if issued, is renewable for a period of 5 years, may be issued a maximum of 2 years, or until the applicant reaches the age of 65, whichever comes first. Okay? All right, let me go down here. Some of you, okay, here we are for the work permits. The work permit system is one of the most substantially revised parts of the law. Prior to submitting an application for a work permit, grant or renewal on or after May 1st, that means starting tomorrow. Hi, Omar Banton. If you're the Omar Banton that I know, welcome and thank you for joining. When the law will change, Miss Kay? Tomorrow. So bright and early when you wake up at 8:30. Well, the law changes from 11:59 p.m. tonight, 12 o'clock tonight. But anything submitted to work tomorrow, once they open at 8:30, will be under the new law. Okay? Prior to submitting an application for a work permit, grant, or renewal on or after May 1st, 2026, an employer must demonstrate that the position has been advertised for a minimum of 21 days in both of the following prescribed media. Okay? Guys, this is really serious. So if you're applying for a grant or renewal starting tomorrow, your employer must show advertisements that have been on Works job portal and in a local newspaper for at least 21 days. So, that's why many of you should have gotten your work permit in by the end of today. Okay? So what you're going to do for 21 days, I don't know. Hopefully they can apply, put in the adverts well if you're granted a temporary. However, a 3-week grace period will apply where work permit applications submitted up to the 21st of May 2026 may still rely on advertisements that met the previous 14-day requirement. Let me read that over. A 3-week grace period will apply where permit applications submitted up to the 21st of May 2026 may still rely on advertisements that met the previous 14-day requirement. Okay. All right. When advertisement is, this wasn't really falling for employees, but when advertising in a local newspaper, employers are required to show proof of 3 consecutive weeks of advertising for the post with a minimum of 1 advertisement per week. Advertisements within the local newspaper should contain the following information: job title and description. Okay, so for you employers, a job title, description, required skills and experience, base salary. Again, I want to say if anyone wants to receive a copy of this, email me and I can easily send you a copy. It is very easy to read, not a lot of big words, and most of you know the words that are used now in this in the immigration. Down here it says restriction on changing employers. A person who is the holder of a work permit shall not change the person's employer within the first 2 years of the grant of the work permit. A work permit holder who changes employers within the first 2 years after the grant of a work permit must leave the island for at least 1 year before another employer can apply for a work permit in respect of that person. This requirement does not apply to domestic helpers who may continue working as a domestic helper for a different employer. Person can apply for an exemption from the 1-year leave requirement under the following circumstances, right? So, If you find yourself regularly unpaid overtime or work outside the job description without compensation, discrimination, bullying, retaliation, or harassment, including sexual, physical, or verbal, or other circumstances that the Director of Work considers sufficient, your application must be made in writing within 3 days after termination of employment. So whether you terminate the employment or the employer terminates the employment, you must let the department know what your circumstances were, why you are no longer on that job, and it must be supported by proof of the circumstances. Okay, again, that's why I said, did you document it? Supported by the proof of the circumstances relied upon. Now, I want to say this. I'm going to encourage the government to start publishing these things in Spanish. And what other language do we have very common here? Spanish and Filipino language. I don't remember. The Philippines have a few different languages, but I think there's one that's pretty common. Because I believe under human rights that is necessary, that this should be printed in and now we don't want people believing that they can come here and not learn to speak English, because I know a lot of people who are here in Ireland and they don't speak good English. I don't know how they pass the English test. And you go to certain establishments and they cannot speak English properly. But I do believe a very important document like this should be printed in language that represents more common language that has the highest percentage of residents on island. Let me get back here to this document. Okay. Okay, so I just went into that. So yes, if what I am reading here, and I'm just going according to this. So if tomorrow you have a work permit that you've not finished, right? And they're going to apply for that. I don't really know how this is going to work, because this is very confusing. I don't even want to come. I really don't even want to, oh my gosh, to comment on that. I just think it's best if each individual employer or employee calls the department and gets the information from them firsthand, because this is just a generic release, and a lot of things could factor in, so each person's situation might be different. Employer duty to notify work when employment has ended. An employer must notify the Department of Work within 7 days after a person's employment ends. So whether the employer terminated the employment or the employee terminated the employment, the employer must let the department know within 7 days. Failing to do so is an offense and may be liable on summary conviction to a fine of $20,000, imprisonment for 2 years, or both. Okay? Financial standing for dependents, the updated requirement is must show $5,000 per month in primary income to add the first dependent. So if you are here in a work permit and you want to add one dependent, you must show that you can you at least have $5,000 per month in income, plus another $1,000 per month for each additional dependent. So if you have one dependent, whether it's your husband or your child, and you want to add them to your work permit, you must show that your income, your first income, if you have 2 incomes or more, or you have 2 persons, like a husband and wife, and they may want to add a child, you must show your primary income is $5,000, not combined. If you're husband and wife and you want to bring your child and you want to show $5,000, it must be your primary income. And if you want to add another dependent, it's another, you must show another extra $1,000 per month for each additional dependent. Okay? Income used to meet this requirement may be combined. Oh, okay. Combined between the applicant and their spouse or civil partnership where applications are filed pursuant to the listed sections. And section, okay, as a spouse or civil partnership. So you can use the combined incomes. Term limits where spouses both hold work permits. If a work permit holder applies for or renews a work permit based on their spouses or civil partnerships term limit, meaning the term limit as aligns, the term limit for both individuals will be aligned to that of the permit holder with the less time remaining, and will no longer align with the permit holder who has the greater time remaining. I just spoke on that a few minutes ago. So whoever has the less time remaining, that is what the term limits will be. So if the husband has 5 years and the wife has 2 years, the term limit will be 2 years for both. Okay? Should two work permit holders be married and not opt to align their term limits, they can continue to have different term limit expiry dates. So if you're two work permit holders and you don't want to put your term limits together, you can continue to have different term limit expiry dates. So you don't have to put your term limits with your spouse. If a person is attached to their spouse's work permit and has already reached their term limit, they will no longer qualify for this immigration facility, meaning they will no longer qualify for term limit consideration when their spouse or partnership's permit comes up for renewal. If neither person has reached their term limit, they can continue under the current permit arrangement until it expires. When the permit is up for renewal, they should check with work to confirm their eligibility going forward. Okay? So what I would say, the expedited services, this is what you guys want to hear. The fees are here. Okay, I'll just tell you this quickly and wrap up for the 2 hours. As part of the immigration reform, express fees are now formally included in the law for expedited processing of specific work permits. Okay? These fees apply in addition to the normal application fees where expedited processing is available. So you're going to pay the express fees and your regular application fees. Same thing. Under the updated framework, that means a new law, express fees apply in certain categories, including business visitors permits, temporary work permits, and annual work permits. The updated law also sets out what an express fee is. When an express fee is non-refundable, a refund will not be provided where delay is caused by the department and or the statutes. Law requirements for the review of the application or other proceedings that must take place before the application can be determined. Okay? There is also a written notice requirement. Before an express fee is paid, work must notify the person in writing that a refund will not be provided in those circumstances. If such a delay occurs after payment, work must also notify the person in writing of the delay for the reason for the delay. A separate rule applies where a person has already paid an express application fee for a temporary work permit before the new express fee provisions commences on May 1st. Any refund of that fee is dealt with under the early year legal position. So if you've paid express fees before tomorrow, then any refunds will be processed under the old law that's still in place as of 12 o'clock tonight. Okay, so the immigration, the new fees, amended fees, the right to be Caymanian. I'm just going to say these quickly. How much for a construction application? Hold on. Okay, right to be Caymanian by entitlement. Previous fee was $250. It's now gone to $1,000. Lord have mercy. Application for the right to be Caymanian by cabinet. That means the government. Previously was nil, has now gone to 1,000. So if you can't get Caymanian status through the regular channels and you feel you have a case to apply through cabinet, you have to apply with a $1,000 fee. Grant of the right to be Caymanian by cabinet. Oh well, just to submit the application is $1,000. If it's granted, it's $10,000. Whoa. Application for the right to be Caymanian grounds of descent. The previous fee was $250. Now the fee is nil. Grant of the right to be Caymanian grounds of descent. The previous fee was $1,000. Now it's nil. Application for the right to be Caymanian grounds of naturalization. The previous fee was $250. Now it's $1,000. Grant of the right to be Caymanian grounds of naturalization. The previous fee was $1,000. Now it's $5,000. Application for the right to be Caymanian grounds of marriage to a civil partnership with a Caymanian. The previous fee was $250. Now it's $500. Grants of right to be Caymanian grounds of marriage to or civil partnership with a Caymanian. The previous fee was $1,000. Now it's $2,000. Filing of an annual declaration by a person granted the right to be Caymanian under Section 28A of the Act. Now the new fee will be $100. I keep hearing there's someone out there. Okay, specialist caregivers, farm hands. Many of you may be farm hands. The fees didn't change too much with those, from $100 to $150. Okay, let me go down here. Some of you want to know. Permanent resident, surviving spouse, or symbol of partnership. Oh my gosh, I think I have to do a whole new, let me do a whole new video tomorrow on some of these fees. Let me see. Yes, I think I need to do a new video on these fees. I will do this tomorrow. Oh my gosh, guys, I need to, temporary work permits. Yes, I'm gonna have to do a whole new video on the fees, because some of the fees have changed and some of them are the same. I can just tell you what I see here. That is it for that. Good night, my friend. Apply for a 3-month temporary work permit that costs $575 and she only get a month. Okay. Guys, I am going to end this now. It's 1:32, an hour and 32 minutes. How much for a household work permit? I would suggest that you can call work tomorrow. Oh my gosh, they're going to be overloaded. I'm going to do another video sometime tomorrow, Friday, May 1st, and let you know about the new fees. If you want a copy of this booklet, send me your email address and I can send it to you, whether you're an employer, employee, person married to Caymanian, whatever your immigration status is, Caymanian or not. I can share this with you. It's kind of hard to find it on the government website, so I don't mind sharing it. I have to rush. I am sorry. I can do another live tomorrow and talk to some of you. Thanks for joining me and have a good night. How do I end this thing? I have no clue. I wish someone could tell me how to end this live, because I'm so embarrassed to say I have no clue how to do it. It has been so much fun though. I can try to look at the messages and answer some of your calls. Okay, go live together. Does anyone know how to end this thing? Hi. How do I end this? Does anyone know? Hi, Miss Fluffy. I have no clue how to end this live, so I'm just going to click here, end live. There I go.